usual Mr. Zeppo. Wishing you a good morning, Trumptopia! Today is the 6th day of the 8th month of the first year of Trumptopia, known as the 20th and 17th, 2017th year of our Lord Jesus Christ. Welcome to today's show. As we wait for more shoes to fall, more of that, quote, drip, 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 to drain out of this leaky WhiteHouse, both literally and figuratively, our dear POTUS, the great orange one, is on an extended golf vacation. It's been 198 days, 0 hours, 30 minutes, and 28 seconds since Donald J. Trump, formerly known as Drumpf, was elected into office. Those of you wondering how long till Trump leaves office, 1,262 days, 9 hours, 34 minutes, and 8 seconds. Let's give a quick thanks to howlonguntiltrumpleaves.com and howlonghasdonaldtrumpbeenpresident.com for providing accurate countdowns of the Trumptopian era. Good day to you and welcome, my fellow Trumptopians. Happy Trump Day to you. I just made that up. Happy Sunday to you. If Trump succeeds and becomes the military dictator overlord with slight tendencies towards, religious prophet identity complex, Sundays might very well be Trump Day in the future. Wouldn't that be fun? There's so much going on in Trumptopia that it's really, really getting overwhelming. And I'm becoming a bit jaded. There's so much detail. And there's so many division places. It's getting exhausting getting onto social media and hold on one second. The thing just happened. A good friend of mine who is looking forward to being a guest on this show with a contrary position to mine just posted as a reaction to some post the real Russia ruse that nobody talks about. Secretary and little like thinky man emoji with hands to the chin, 3 of them, and then the meme reads, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton approved the transfer of 20% of U.S. uranium to Putin's Russia as 9 investors in the deal funneled $145 million into the Clinton Foundation. I talk about it all that time, my dear friend. He'll be surprised to realize that we probably don't have much disagreement there. We might totally agree on this, I write back to him. I'm actually doing this live as it happens. Isn't it exciting, folks? Going to be live all Sunday, by the way, so the flow of the show is going to be radically different. It's going to be about reacting and responding to stuff on the internet, mostly, I suppose. I don't have any co-hosts or guests quite yet, although the interest seems to be building. I'm getting more and more curiosity questions about it from folks that are sort of like curious but not down, you know? And that's cool. That's a good sign. But I digress. So what I want to say to my good buddy Seth, who will probably end up coming over here one of these days and chit-chatting with me, is the bit I've shared quite a bit on Facebook already. I may have talked about it here. But let me just put... Here's the thing about this whole... At a larger scale, I'm always about zooming back and questioning everything, right? So here's a question, or here's a thing that people aren't looking at very much, I don't think. Because they're falling for the us versus them dichotomy of argumentation. And maybe I haven't talked about this on the show much yet, but thank goodness my buddy Seth is down. He gets it. He's prompting me for a really great response, which I'm going to have to type eventually at some point. But I'm going to ramble at you guys first, so you get it exclusive by about 3 seconds. It may seem kind of obvious, but if you deeply think about it, the following is true and stands as a great analogy for what we may be missing here in terms of what Russia really is and the many ways in which it's being used as a ruse in terms of Russia's quote-unquote intervention and or other engagement with people here in the United States. And I know that there's a lot of opinions in all directions on this, but think about the following. If you have the money, if you go fix a boxing match, you got to pay off both fighters and probably the ref and probably at least one of the commentators so that the whole scam flies just right. You got to get in a few layers deep. You don't just pick a fighter and pay them, and you got to pay off both sides. That's the thing. I'm in concurrence with those who debate that both sides of any political fight that renders someone into being voted into office is highly corrupted already. And the corruption is pervasive at all times. And that, yes, even when fair-minded, non-super mega rich people try to get into the fray, the corruption approaches them. That's a known factor of the way Trumptopia works now. And I mean, it's become so painfully obvious. Just look at the things that Donald Trump himself just openly says, the way he talks. He wheels and deals like he's still on The Apprentice, and that's nothing new, right? That's not a new observation. Let me type some of this at my buddy Seth. When you... Oh, God, I wish I could type better. When you... boxing match. Not only... All right, I'm adding something. Listen, you guys are listening to me type. And call me crazy if you like. Get on my Facebook, on my Instagram. I'm debating whether or not to create Facebook pages for each segment. That seems like a lot of work. I'm already kind of stretched thin trying to make the shows happen. But I digress. Back to, as I sort of surreptitiously spell check, as I ramble at you guys. There we go. So I wrote back to him. I talk about this all the time. At least I try. Especially, I didn't write all this. Hold on. I got to read it, not commentate on it. I talk about that all the time. We might totally agree on this. When you fix a boxing match, you not only pay off both fighters, but also the ref and at least one, if not both, of the action commentators to guarantee the win. Russia is just another proxy for someone deeper in the system of oppression. That's the ruse. That's the ruse, folks. Of course Russia's a ruse. So, I feel strongly that this is an exhausting reality show, an exhaustingly massive and well-produced reality show. And I've said for a long time, folks, in public, in face-to-face conversations with individuals, and in social media, politics is the original reality programming, even before televisions were invented. So, where do we go from there? Well, let me tell you something. Let me read something to you I shared on Facebook. This is not an original meme to me, but it's one of those ones that I don't know the original author of, because I've seen it several times and I finally just quoted it off of someone's page. And I quote, "Governments owned by corporations, run by psychopaths," I would say sociopaths, but whatever, lying about an imaginary economy based on debt, and that's the legit assessment of what's going on here in our free market assessment. No matter how much the free marketers and the corporate, economic enthusiasts might cling to that model, it's fucking imaginary. It's completely made up, and it's based on debt. Why? We are the debt slaves. Okay, I continue with the meme itself. Fueled by illegal wars, destroying our ecosystems, poisoning our food and water, decreasing our education, increasing our prisons, manipulating the media, suppressing free energy, making us struggle and forcing us to starve, humiliating and killing the rest of the world, all whilst you stay silent, pay taxes, and vote. Now, I'm not 100% agreement with everything in that. And I want to unpack some of the statements because I think it's really salient. But I also want to read what I wrote on the post when I shared it. So this is from the 3rd. This is a few days ago. But I've posted this before. But this is my updated text for it. Many didn't think that it could... Oh, I totally fucked that up. All right. I need to edit that again. Many didn't think that it could be true. But it is now really sinking in that America's most famous, crazy, redneck, celebrity, millionaire, egomaniac, sociopath, game show host, because that's what he was for the vast majority of his career, besides being a supposed real estate mogul. There's a lot of fallacy in that segment, but anyways, or in that, part of his mythos. He's now the emperor-like president of the United States, for better or for worse. Democracy in action. Yay, hashtag Trumptopia. One of the first times I used Trumptopia was when I originally posted that. Much earlier than August 3rd. I posted this during the election cycle. But here's the salient part that comes back to the general theme of my podcast projects that will stretch on forever and that I always want to tie back into. It's like the universe really wants us all to be so shocked that we deeply realize how crazy, insane our quote-unquote normal American way of life, end quote, actually is. By making this so unavoidably bad, the presidency, the situation, the clusterfuckery as I call it, in the White House, making it so unavoidably bad that we finally all transcend our petty differences and unite around life and love and and healing instead of dividing ourselves ideologically. I stumbled over it because I realized several sort of grammatical errors there, and I want to edit them now. But I'm live on the air, so I'm not going to bore you guys with that. Any fans of Chris McKenna out there? He's an actor. He's a buddy of mine in real life. Not like we hang out a lot. But when we did hang out, it was good times. And I continue to admire and love this dude. And, we may not agree on all things. That doesn't matter. I really dig his core energy. I got to know the real him. Like, on many levels during this one particular business trip that we took. Anyways, Chris McKenna tweeted recently, Trump's God, the coffee is not kicked in. New Year's resolution, do more vocal warm-ups before first podcast of the day. All right. I quote Chris McKenna. I've already memified this because it's bang on about just the general crazy tone of his tweeting, our president's. Trump's angry tweets read like a guy trying to guilt a girl into sex by whining about his blue balls. Period. Sad. Period. He even he does a great job of sort of throwing shade at Trump's style by sort of co-opting parts of it, aspects of it. I want to take the time to unpack this tweet, which, is something I didn't do in writing. And I also want to sort of look at some of the comments. There's been more comments since then. The unpacking here. Like a guy trying to guilt a girl into sex by this bully tactic. The President of the United States is trying to bully the public of the United States, or Trumptopia, the Trumptopians, into what with this bullying tactic, with this clusterfuckery of distraction from each distraction that he creates. We don't even know, some of us can't even keep track of or remember very well which conspiracy is the most, impossible sounding, yet most accurate. Of all the, not conspiracy, of all the controversies. Forgive my Freudian slip. I meant to address the conspiracy theories around Trump a little bit later in the show. But yeah, we can't, it's getting so intense. We're having Trump exhaustion. Trump exhaustion? Hashtag, question mark? I don't know. But the Donald himself looks a bit tired of all the winning, as I've been pointing out for a few weeks now. And no wonder that the President of the United States has to go take his umpteenth golf vacation and extend it. He's gone golfing on, I've lost track of how many weekends. More than his rival, Obama, who he chastised quite self-righteously multiple times, quite outstripping him, month to month, day to day. This time at the beginning of Obama's first year in office has been outstripped already in the number of golf sessions. And I don't know how the base feels about that. I haven't heard much on that, but the base is slowly, noticeably shrinking. This is encouraging news for Trumptopia, my friends. Remember, for those of you who are new, I don't use the term Trumptopian to belittle those who are the base. We are all Trumptopians. The term Trumptopia is a warning, my friends, that we must unite to not allow this to become we can't normalize this kind of insanity, right? And then let Don Jr. run for office next. Or even, bless her heart, Ivanka. What if they did that? What if Trump doesn't run for a second term because he's done so badly, but then We get a Democrat for a little bit, and then boom. It's Don Jr. and Ivanka running as team. You know what I mean? Like, we already have an institutional familial legacy track record. The Bush Empire era was ridiculous. And a lot of people who are just coming to terms with their political self-realization and are kind of over-gratuitously calling themselves awake for it haven't even hit that realization yet. You know what I mean? Like, this is beyond partisanship. The Bushes were already setting the tone for an empire-esque, an empire-like familial, co-opting of democracy. This is something that our dear friend Putin over in his own nation, and I say that with both sarcasm and spiritual acknowledgement. Not sure what I mean there? Check into some of my other episodes and find out. I say it a lot. I might end up repeating it in this episode. If you're a fan, you know what I'm talking about. But for those who aren't aware, and I hope that you share this at people who are, kind of charmed or enamored with Putin, and I've put this warning out. The extreme Christian right is getting seduced by this. There are marketers, to use the most kind term possible, going to congregations in the extreme right and marketing a pro-Russia, pro-Putin, let's be friends with them. And I'm like, okay, let's run with it. Let's take a good look at our good friend Putin. He has been president, or what's that other job that he always has? It's the one that's just like prime minister. It's just like in England. They have a prime minister. So Putin, in Russia, there's a prime minister and a president, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. It could be, being brain farty. I'm not looking it up on the internet right this second because I'll bore you with the typing. Either way, there's two jobs, president and something else. And Putin has held those jobs in a weird, funny, everyone forgets that he keeps juggling them kind of way for like 11 too many years. All right? And they don't pretend to be a democracy. They pretend to be sort of mildly consumerist in their economy now, but there's still a lot of hanky-panky going on. And as I said in that response to my friend, and as I've written to people on Facebook a lot, because there's a lot of anger at Russia, and there's also a lot of acceptance, and that's a dangerous place. Get one part of the nation angry at Russia, get another part of the nation to start getting charmingly to fall in love with Russia. And what do you get? Endless division, endless argument, the generation of more hate, the generation of more debate and division within the country itself. Now, who's ultimately responsible? Is it Russia? Is it Putin? I don't know. But it seems like if we zoom out, that there's a much longer standing effort that transcends the names involved to normalize a sort of family lineage of democracy as, or rather as a corporate oligarchy disguised as democracy. I posit to you, friends, that's the effort behind the clusterfuckery of Trumptopia. And they are flirting with all the different ways to both achieve steps towards that without having a coup. And then they're curious that they use some of the same language of what it looks like they're flirting with against others. It's another distractionary method common to bullies, playground bullies, and sociopaths who take over countries. And that's to accuse their opposition of being on the verge of doing what they're surreptitiously sort of lining up to do. And let's be clear. I don't think anybody playing for the dark side is like hyper self-aware or conscious about it. All right? Does that sound like a shocking and bizarre statement? Catch up with previous episodes. But it's fascinating how much division is catching like wildfire. Example, even Republican senators and congresspersons are uniting over the fight to keep, I think I've already talked about this before, to keep Mueller in office, right? So that's the thing to remember. There's Republicans everywhere that are arguing with Republicans about whether to continue to support the president or to start crossing the aisle on all fronts. It's obvious in the Obamacare thing. The crazy chapter that the Obamacare fight is in is really getting ridiculous and fun and silly. And I'd like to remind everyone of something that I don't think I've touched on in a really long time. Before Obamacare was called Obamacare, the exact same policy structures were called Mitt Romney Care. Believe it or not. Go do the research. And before it was Mitt Romney Care, the exact same legislative idea was developed, conceived, and birthed out of the, which think tank is it now? I just had their thought, and as I came up with the little transition there, I lost the Heritage Foundation. So it was Heritage Foundation Care, first and foremost. If you don't know who Heritage Foundation is, you need to do some research, my friend. The truth about politics is that all the politicians are selected by an interesting collection of interests that are represented by think tanks. And if you monitor what the think tanks do and crank out, then the brainwashing becomes obvious. And you realize that both parties are run by propaganda machines and the interests that fund them. And in part. And that there's a coalition between the hyper big corporations that we call big whatever, big oil, big pharma, the military industrial complex, which didn't get big military ever. I don't know why, but it should be called big military, big war profiteers. You can bond them all together, okay? When medicine that they sell you has death listed as a side effect and has some or many of the ingredients, are co-opted ingredients from chemical warfare initiatives, from companies and corporations that, were war corporations during the war, the Great War, and probably will return to being war corporations during the next Great War. You gotta wonder. And it's fascinating to hear the desperate talk, not just in this country, but in others. Because guess what? Trumptopianism is not exclusive to Trump. In fact, I'm sure in a million years the Trump family would never have thought to invent or coin the term Trumptopia, even though they love their name a lot. Their kind of bogus-y hides the fact that they are immigrants from another country, legal and rich, the kind this country's predisposed to prefer. I wonder why that is. But I digress. Even in other countries, we're seeing two really great examples of it right now. Netanyahu, who I'm sure, the response to that name is as wildly diverse and crazy on all ends as it is to Trump himself. And there's a wild and bizarre spread of conspiracy theories there, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right this second, but let's just see what's being actually reported in the humdrum everyday corporate news. Netanyahu is accused of corruption. Accused by someone, undisclosed, maybe some brave and valiant collection of citizen advocates, but maybe some other large corporate interest that is just part of the many pieces that are included or inculcated or inexorably tied up in the scam we call postmodern society. Everyone's getting played, folks. I posted that meme several years, I think at least 2 or 3 years ago. It wasn't mine, I was quoting someone else made a really great infographic using chess pieces to represent different entities of postmodern society. Politicians, the police, the military, the corporations, and you, us, the public. All of them are pawns. All of them are pieces on the game board. And the players are are not who we think they are. They're more elusive than we realize. That's where I was going with that original phrasing. They are more elusive and secretive and quote unquote occult, not meaning necessarily that they worship Satan and do horrible things to other people, but rather that they are well hidden, because that's the true meaning of occult, well hidden from the masses. It's always cute and adorable to see posts especially coming from people who don't identify publicly as sort of particularly Bible thumpy Christians that are there's a particular flavor of Christianity that's been on edge and worried about end days since pretty much the very, 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 very beginning of groups of churches organizing and peddling additional themes and sneaking, corrupting, for lack of a better term, the prophet or the person we call Christ and his message. And the coming of the end days has been as ridiculously and falsely misleading and used to take advantage of people from the very from as far back as you can look in the history of the concept of Christianity. And it's wild and fascinating to see it crop up. I may have this in my saved section, or I may not, over there on the Facebooks. No, I don't have it up. I thought I was clever. Whenever we think we're being clever, we have to stop and realize that we are not. And we have to stop and realize that being clever is not necessarily anything to be all that interested in. Clever is cute, but not particularly super helpful. Let's see if I can find this thing. But there was a great post about end days and them approaching soon. And my response was essentially that, it's silly to think that way. The end days are always upon us. There is only now. And the revelation is always on the verge of happening. Revelations got altered. The meaning Revelations got altered during the course of Christian misuse of it, and in association with the book Revelations. Revelations is not inherently the coming of the of the end times. It is the revealing of that which has been hidden away. And that which has been hidden away is the truth, my friends. And the truth is not ideologue. The truth is not spelled out by some special individual and declared from a mountaintop. The truth exists in itself as it is in reality. And the revelation of it is really, truly not from outside, not to be achieved from outside or vis-a-vis the acceptance of one ideological position or another. The revelation that we've all been seeking, that all religions indicate and forewarn about, and that arguably they are misinterpreting and misconstruing from a deep, deep past that we don't even want to acknowledge. And that's that, we experienced a calamity of proportions so powerful and so intense that even the best of our abilities to prepare, we barely survived it. And were reduced back to the most elemental place of our existence, out in nature with barely a stick or a rock amongst us to, do anything with. But I digress. For those of you who are like, the fuck? Dig deep. Or start at the beginning. And if you're not sure where the beginning of this project is, unfortunately, the only other place, if you're listening to this on YouTube, I started with exactly the place I wanted to end. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Google Play or any of the other podcast catchers or, podcast players that it may be turning up on, if you really want to get the very, very beginning of, just to see what I've been playing with, it's not great. I will admit to you, like really only a handful of the moments in those episodes are to me impressive, but it is what it is, and it stands out there raw. And there's some genius moments buried in the banality of it, I think. And it's not my genius; it's just sort of what the inspiration came, when I did it. You have to go to YouTube. It's the only place where the very, very original edition of what the project is sort of more closely representing what it's meant to be. All of these little projects, and that's in video form. But forgive the self-promotion there. There is a meta-thesis and a big sort of meta message being woven together. And we have to start with the frank discussion of what's really going on in our politics. I was saying that there's two other great examples. Netanyahu is one, and that's a thorny patch of generations of conflict history, mounted on top of which is all this postmodern conspiracy theory debate or fighting or argument, flame war on top of it. And then the sort of persistent anger-mongering tactic of label versus label that goes on around it, which is, exactly the kind of thing that I'm humbly suggesting we need to step away from, my friends. If we're ever going to solve the Israel-Palestine problem, we have to disengage from any of the approaches towards a solution that are deeply rooted in anger or hatred, or that invoke any such, argumentation and fighting as a reaction in the process of supposedly solving the problem. Same thing goes for any other, social situations that are as messy as that in any other country you can think of. Is it Venezuela? Am I correct? I wish I had it on hand, but I think it's Venezuela, right? Where the president has just sort of used the mechanisms of democratic election, quote unquote, to arguably prepare himself to transition to military dictatorship. Are we surprised? Why are we surprised and shocked and confused and often left wondering, how do we end this? Oh, it's just human nature. That's the script we've been given, folks. That's the point that we neglect. That's the sort of center of nexus, rather. That's the nexus of all the. If there's an axis of evil or a nexus of evil, I think we can zone into that. To this constant, historically constant, seemingly endless struggle between the quote unquote fight for freedom and the quote unquote seemingly it's just human nature, so inherent corrupting desire to take over the world. Oh, woe is me, what do we do? there's so much to dig into there. But I noticed that I've already used up the entirety of the 45 minutes for today's opening segment. Please forgive me, folks. I really genuinely... that was a bit early, too. I really genuinely intended to make Season 2 a much more fast-paced, much more punchy, more organized, shorter length set of episodes so that, more people might be engaged in listening to it. Happy for 20 minutes, 4 minutes and 20 seconds left of the episode. But I think what I'll try to do is produce a mix, or generate a mix. Now that I've done a long, rambly 45-minute Good Morning Trumptopia, I'll do a really brief and tight and organized breaking news in a little bit later on today, and also try to mix it up with the other segments. But one of the things I am going to be really consistent on from now on, my dear friends, is to be live all day Sunday. No matter how short the segments I record, I'm going to turn around and turn the mic back on and ramble at you in hopes that on Sundays there's an audience. Show up on Sprecher Live and engage vis-a-vis the app in the chat room. Not because I want, fanship, praise. I really appreciate those who've been posting, whether they're spam bots or real people. I appreciate that somebody's posted on some of my social media platform profiles. Good work. Keep it up. But hopefully it's more genuine than just, Instagram to Instagram marketing. But what am I calling out for? I'm trying to make this something that's more engaging than just going, that guy rambled really interestingly for the last 45 minutes. I think I understand what he's talking about. I really want to get in depth to, to different points of view. So every Sunday, I'm going to be live on Sprecher.com/user/Mr. Zeppo. If you've got the internet, it's free to listen to. The app is simple and straightforward, and you can catch my podcast live and submit your questions during the show, etc., etc., etc. For those of you downloading and listening at whatever time listening at whatever time is most convenient to you, thank you, and keep coming back. I hope to be more and more interesting as time goes on. This is, of course, a production of CTEC Studios. It's made possible by your genuous? That's hashtag confluence of generous and genuine. Your generous and genuine support vis-a-vis Patreon.com. If you've gone to visit my Patreon page, you know I've got 0 patrons right now, and that's fine. I'm just welcoming the time when patrons do subscribe. I'm also working really hard to welcome that without ego attachment or expectation. I don't need the money, but if I generate some revenue through Patreon, I can expand this show and become a job. As always, my friends, may peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart. Thank you for listening. This has been your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. I'll be right back live on Sprecher in just a few minutes.